Good evening. I'd like to call to order the meeting for Bedford Township for November 19th. Please stand for the pledge. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. At this time, if I could have Pastor Bob Hines come up from Bedford Alliance Church and open us up in prayer.
Thank you for the privilege of doing this. Lord Jesus, we want to thank you and praise you for these men and women that serve in the leadership of this community. We thank you for their commitment, their hard work, and their faithfulness in serving this township. And Lord, as we gather tonight, we also want to remember those two officers that were injured today up in Monroe. We pray for complete healing for them. I just pray that their families, you would just wrap your arms around them and encourage their families as well during this difficult time. Lord, we thank you for the privileges we have of living in this nation and pray that these men and women would have great wisdom and discernment as they make decisions for Bedford Township, that they would have a boldness and a courage to move us forward, and yet, God, be sensitive to what you'd want for this community. And Lord, I pray as a township that we would rally around our elected officials and we would show support and encouragement to them, and that we might be an example for the rest of the communities and nation to look at and see how well we support those that are representing us. And so we thank you for these men and women. And again, I pray that you give them great wisdom and discernment. And I ask it in Jesus' name. Amen.
Amen. Thank you for being here. Okay, item 2 is approval of the agenda.
Motion to approve the agenda is submitted.
Okay, motion and supported by Mr. Clemens. Discussion? Seeing none, could you call the roll, please?
Mr. Steiner?
Aye.
Mr. Clemens?
Aye.
Mr. Montroy?
Aye.
Mr. Francis?
Aye.
Tinderberry is absent. Hirschberger votes aye. Mr. Peroni?
Aye, the motion passed 6-0. Item 3 is the consent agenda. The agenda committee recommends to A, approve and place on file the minutes of the November 5th, 2019 regular meeting of the Bedford Township Board. B, accept and place on file the general savings, pooled and CD reports from the treasurer. C, approve and place on file the revenue expense report and balance sheet for the period ending October 31st, 2019. D, approve the 2020 meeting dates for the Bedford Township Board.
Motion to approve the consent agenda. No support.
Okay, motion is supported by Mr. Clemens. Discussion? Seeing none, could you call the roll, please?
Mr. Steiner?
Aye.
Mr. Clemens?
Aye.
Mr. Francis?
Aye.
Mr. Montroy?
Aye.
Hirschberger votes aye. Mr. Peroni?
Aye, and the motion passed 6-0. Item 4 is presentations. Presentation by Deputy Drain Commissioner Tim Csurgo. Come on up.
Good evening. Tim Csurgo, representing David Thompson, Monroe County Drain Commissioner. I'm here before you tonight. Seems like it's just been last month, but it was a whole year ago, to give you the Bedford Waste Treatment Plant budget for the year coming up for 2020. The most significant thing is there is an increase in the budget of about 6%, and some of that is built in for overtime that we've been paying during the construction and rehab of the plant. You know, the sewage plant has to run 24/7, 365 days a year. We have anywhere from 20 to 40 additional workers on site doing construction. That'll proceed probably through July of this year. And we will, you know, we need to have people there on Saturday and such. So we've had to allot for that in the budget. And of course, some things have went up in cost, like normal. But so the budget presented is as provided in the cover letter. I think gives you the summary. I think the board probably has that in their packet. And this is pretty routine stuff. If anybody has any questions. The plan is currently, the rehab on the plan is probably a little over 50% at this time. So it's moving along quite well. There have been a few bumps in the road, but they've all been manageable. And then keep in mind that at the end of this year, once the construction is completed, then the state revolving fund, SRF, will kick in where we'll have to start paying interest and principal back for the improvements, for the loan. And remember, that loan was at 2%. It's a great rate for the community.
Everything been running fairly smooth with construction process?
Yeah, it's been running fairly smooth. It's just been difficult at times because the MDQ, now Eagle, requires that we still put out the discharge effluent into the creek. That's very clean, and we have to monitor that constantly. And because we have to take certain parts of the plant offline and depend on other parts to pick up the slack, it's been hard to maintain that.
So when you say paying for the overtime, are you talking the construction end or our employees end?
Well, our employees end.
Okay. just
Yeah,
wanna make
yeah,
sure.
we have to, anything that's construction related, we've kind of included, but I still have to have people there on Saturdays.
Okay.
If for some reason they have a late pour and they're there till 6 o'clock at night, and so I have to have somebody there to lock the gates and close up the place at night. Just a safety thing. There's been additional cost because of construction. Not a whole lot, but a little bit. And then, we'll have, when the construction is done, then hopefully the second half of next year, we'll get a better handle on what our electric bills are gonna be, what are, all the changes that we've created at the plant is gonna change our O&M budget for 2021 a little bit.
Is there any way to back charge the contractor for some of them overtime costs,
No,
or is it not
no,
part of the bid?
they're allowed to be there from 7 in the morning to 7 at night, 6 days a week. That's part of the
Okay.
contract with them. Yeah, that's normal. We knew this was gonna happen.
Okay. Any more comments and questions for Mr. Csurgo?
Nancy's not here to ask a bunch of questions. I miss it.
Okay, do we need a motion?
We're going to do it under 6A, so there's public comment first.
Okay. Okay, thank you, Tim.
Thank you.
Okay, staff reports, a resolution to approve the 2020 budget. First, we're gonna do number 5 is public comment. Comments limited to 2 minutes for board agenda items only. Come on up.
Good evening, Logan Tisdale, 1308 Brandywine Street. This is in regards to new business 8C. I would ask that the board pass a resolution needed for a body camera grant for Ordinance Department. If for some reason they can't get a grant, that I would hope that the board would consider getting those cameras using the money from our budget for that. Thank you.
For your comments, any more comments from the public? Okay, seeing none, moving on to 6A, staff reports, a resolution to approve the 2020 budget for operation and maintenance of the Bedford Township sewer system. Mr. Francis?
Mr. Csurgo hit all the highlights that are on the thing that is in your packet, and if there are no further questions or discussion items, I'd like to make a motion to approve the resolution to approve the 2020 budget for the sewer operation and maintenance for the calendar year 2020 as presented.
Support.
Okay, we have a motion supported by Mr. Clemens. Discussion? Seeing none, could you call the roll, please?
Mr. Francis?
Aye.
Mr. Clemens?
Aye.
Mr. Steiner?
Aye.
Mr. Montroy?
Aye.
Hirschberger votes aye. Mr. Peroni?
Aye, and the motion passed 6-0. Item 7, unfinished business, Bedford Branch Library Painting bids and prioritizing of projects. Mr. Montroy? Or Mr. Adler, you can come on up too.
Yeah.
Let's make sure the green
We may
light.
need you, you never know.
Is the green light on?
I'm
Aaron?
new.
Is the green light on the?
It's on.
Okay.
On the end of the month.
Yeah, I turned it on.
So you guys wanted to talk about the painting bid? Did you have any questions on that for the painting bid that you wanted to dive into? Or,
Mr. Francis?
It's probably a comment rather than maybe it is a question. You had prepared and gave us a copy of your revised projection of costs and priorities, and this item is listed for year 2.
the painting? That's listed in year 2?
But it's
Yeah,
in
I mean,
there.
You got a copy of that, Jody?
Is that a different?
Is it?
Is
I
that
think that's a
So
different item, right?
It's a year 2, if I'm not mistaken. It's that we're, yeah.
Yeah, okay. This is year two?
We're already in year two. because the
2018 is
millage-
year one.
Millage was passed in 2018,
And first collected when?
in 2018.
The only concern that I have is, the chiller is not a part of all the projects. And I've spoken with John Rawlings twice now on two different occasions, one last week with Mr. Montry on the phone. The coils are going bad. They have to put Freon in them every year, a couple $1,000s with the Freon. They're $10,000 a coil. The chiller needs to be replaced at some point. It's $50,000 to replace the chiller. That's not on this and not part of the budget.
We've talked about that as one of the elephants in the room, and knowing that with the overall picture, we've really got to be sure that that's understood and that's taken care of right off the bat, or
So I guess my point is doing painting and some of these other projects knock the chiller out.
the one that you'll see upcoming certainly is carpet. That one's got a $200,000 plus price tag, and that's the one that really is gonna have a lot of discussion at our future meetings here about what we want to do with carpet, and if there's other priorities like the chiller and things that need to
I would
step
think,
up.
I would think the chiller would be a priority over carpet, in my personal opinion. I mean, anything major like that, part of the building, controls, you're gonna save 15 to 20% on billing with controls. You're gonna save money every year on Freon, and it'll be more efficient. I know we've had some questions with the chiller. It does cost us some money. There's a lot of parts that need to be replaced.
Controls is out for bid right now.
Okay.
So controls should be coming back any day now, any week now, and
December
then
6th is the
December
deadline.
6th. and then-
Because painting's 20,000 over budget from what I'm seeing, and I know trees was under budget. I just want to make sure chiller is going to be part of it.
Chiller's for sure part of it. Oh, yeah, definitely.
We didn't include the chiller in the actual plan because that would be a maintenance item, no matter what. The chiller's already there. It's not a capital improvement. So the actual dollar amount that we budget every single year in the library's budget always has some play in it for things that we know are gonna have to be repaired or replaced, and the chiller is gonna be one of those things. My understanding from two different HVAC companies is if we do the service that it needs and we fix the problems that are wrong with it right now, we shouldn't have to replace that chiller for another 10 to 15 years. It has a much longer lifespan on it than what we've been told. And so, and I understand what John's told you, and I obviously am not an HVAC person, but when I've been told by two different companies that these things are wrong, we've got a list that you guys actually had another HVAC company come in and evaluate it, and they gave a list of the things that need to be fixed and serviced on it to make it last its lifetime. If those things actually get done, then that chiller should last us another 10 to 15 years. Having said that, we absolutely always budget for these emergencies. It's estimated, if you look at that sheet that we gave you, that there's still $165,000 left after we do all of these improvements. So paint was always on the list. We have a lot of documents that we shared during the millage campaign that talked about all of the things that we were promising our community that we would do. And in the past, we have painted portions of the library every single year so that over a 3-year rotation, the entire building would get done. We haven't done any painting in that building since 2015, and we have hundreds of thousands of people that come through the building every year. So things like that are just things that have to be done, no matter what their price tag is, and we will do our best to spend the money in the wisest way that we possibly can. And while we understand that some of those things came in over budget, a lot of things have come in under budget. One of the things that they just did, and I just got pricing on this today, they decided not to. We have a whole lot of floor tiles that are cracked in our lobby, and so that was one of the things that we had. We were going to replace those floor tiles. Well, they're not actually trip hazards. So the Library Advisory Board decided to fix just the things that are trip hazards. So we had budgeted, I believe it was $5,000 for fixing that tile, and it's going to cost $50 to fix the tiles that are broken. So that's, a lot of money that we saved there by doing what we think is the best thing to keep the building in good condition for the public to use. So painting isn't something you can ignore, neither is carpeting. When you have 100,000 people come through a building in a given year and it's been there for 15 years and it's frayed in lots of places that cause trip hazards, those things, that's a liability to the township. It's considered a safety hazard. So all of those things, we feel we're really doing exactly what we promised the community and exactly what we feel is in the best interests of everybody in this township. So the money is still there for the chiller. Nobody needs to worry about that. We have planned accordingly. We just didn't put it on our millage promises because it wasn't an item to put on. It's not a capital improvement. It's a repair of an item that's already there.
Speaking to the carpet, if it is a trip hazard, I would get it repaired, the trip hazard area ASAP. I wouldn't wait around.
We have done some of the seams that were in the most highest traffic. Townsend Carpet came through not that long ago and fixed some of the areas in the highest traffic, but that, it's not all of them. And we're patching in old carpeting on new, we don't have any carpeting that matches what's already there. And even if we did, it's 15-year-old carpeting that's there, right? So it's not gonna look the same no matter what. So we actually have strips of carpeting from the community room from when we replaced that at least it's the same colors, but it's not the same pattern at all. So we've got stripes of that throughout the building now.
Has there been talk about, I think it was Trudy that actually mentioned it to me, I think, about putting possible LVT hardwood floor throughout the center, that laminate type, so we're not replacing carpet every 10, 15
I've been
years?
actually looking at it and thinking about it, and that's super excited to recommend that February, March, when that gets closer to our agenda.
Just make
I
sure
know
you're talking to Mike. You got talking to
You should
Mike.
talk to
You
Mike.
gotta
I know
talk to
you're-
Mike.
Sorry,
I know,
yeah.
they can probably hear you.
Yeah. Carpet's like, 6 months away or more, certainly before that's even on our agenda to be dove into. HVAC controls, check, ready to go. Exterior is next in terms of, parking lot, sidewalk, landscaping. We're gonna be getting bids and quotes and things for that and going through the process with that in January is when that's on the agenda for us. And then certainly carpet, you see the price tag. It's like, we gotta really, get real on that and know what it's gonna be and know what the real numbers are gonna be and make a good decision. And I think, looking at new flooring options, right? Like taking carpet out and having no carpet in some places is maybe a great option.
I would just remind everybody of those lovely curved ceilings and how loud it is throughout the entire building right now with carpeting. And if you put any kind of hard flooring in there, it's only going to be amplified and worse. So that would be, unless you want to go Library of Congress style and do cork flooring, I'm all for that. That keeps things quiet. But that's
I would be
twice as much.
excited. I would be excited to invite any of you to our future advisory board meeting to dive into the dynamics of carpet, not carpet, floor.
Well,
not
Jody,
floor,
aren't people supposed to be quiet in a library anyway?
No,
That's what I was gonna ask.
no.
Well, I just
We
want
got
to
this
say,
guy on the board.
I just want to say, this board, I know I can speak for everybody. We appreciate all the hard work you guys put into every meeting you have, and the controls. There's a lot of work that goes into the bidding process and doing the specs, and we know you care about the funds. So do we. And the reason, I think it even got tabled last meeting is ultimately this board's responsible to oversee those funds. So I just want to say we appreciate all the work you guys put into it, so.
But I've been to 4 meetings myself. Wendy Steinman's been to 4 meetings, so we've got a pretty new board, just still wrapping their arms around what we're doing, what we've got, how it all works, and everything. So,
Anybody have any comments or questions?
I did have a question.
Comments?
To piggyback off what Supervisor Prony says, ultimately, we're responsible. And one of the motions in the last meeting was that the company would come up with their contractor's license. It didn't make it in my packet. So I can't vote in support of something.
I
Do you
can
have
answer
it?
that. I don't have the contract, but
And
I
just to
received
be
them.
clear, from my standpoint, it isn't an indictment on the company at all, but as someone who's responsible for watching out for the liability of the township and the residents, I can't in good conscience approve a contract with anybody if the basic boxes haven't been checked off and I haven't seen a fundamental contractor's license. I'm assuming it's a little thing, but it's a little thing that would prevent me from voting in the affirmative unless we have a copy.
So I received this yesterday from Tanya, one of the owners. And she stated that since their company is based in Ohio, they do not have a Michigan contractor's license. The state of Ohio only requests license for specialties that could have major impacts on the structures themselves where the work is being done, such as HVAC, electrical, and plumbing. So therefore, Ohio does not require that license. I did look them up, though, with the state. They are licensed through the state. For all proper filings, articles of organization and such.
Okay.
But as far as a contractor's license, Ohio does not require it, therefore they do not have one.
I'm good. Thank you. That helps me out.
And I just want to mention with Monroe Plumbing and Heating, they were out to look at the chiller. They said the life of a chiller is 15 years. I don't think it was meant that that chiller has 15 years left. And I have a hard time believing that, a guy that we trust to maintenance our chiller and our library and our HVAC, that what he's telling me isn't somewhat accurate, that, the chiller's on its way out. Could it go for 5-10 years? I don't know, but I know we're dumping a lot of free on it every year, and they're not making parts for it. So it's just something we should really possibly get another professional opinion on. Rudolph Libby is a company that's looking possibly at some of our stuff. Maybe that's an option for another company to look at the chiller.
Well, and that's something Mr. Adler and I have discussed, and I don't know if it was stated this evening after talking to Mr. Rawlings, it's the coils that are needing replaced, which are looking to be $40,000 for the coils. A new chiller is $50,000. So it's like replacing a transmission on an old car. It's it's going to make more sense to replace the entire chiller than pay $40,000 to replace the coils. But yeah, that's something that we've discussed
I think we'll put it front
The
and
last
center
week.
on our next agenda
Yeah.
to be sure that we really dive in and get all the details clear with all the members about what's up with the chiller, who's responsible for it,
and get some second opinions and get some
Definitely moves
more
up the ranks
people
here.
in there and looking at it. One other comment I had was when going through this budget for Jody already touched on, we had $5,000 budgeted for the tile flooring. A very, very safe number to say that we spend $1,000. It's like what Jody says, probably closer to $50. But if we say that cost $1,000 for what we actually had done, and then the pendant lights was another $6,000, and then tree removal and landscaping were probably about $10,000. So just between those three jobs of stuff that's already been done in projections, the $20,000 for this bid is about at a wash for the painting.
Okay, does anybody have a motion for the painting bid? Or any more questions or comments about the,
I
Yeah.
don't,
Yeah, go ahead.
I don't know if the board's interested. The last meeting I was asked to look at the proposal and what it covered. And it does cover the general building, grounds operation, maintenance, and for capital expenditures for the building and ground improvements and replacements. So it can cover all of that.
So our understanding also is you guys have gotten a lot of material and we've gone over a lot of material that we weren't even fully aware of, a lot of us board members, that happened at the last election. It seems like we have a lot of flexibility in some ways in terms of what happens in year 5, what happens in year 4, what happens in year 2, and so I would just let as we move forward, we're going to be really trying to creatively think about what the library is dealing with and what the best decisions are to be made,
I think the point of the board at the end of the day is we've been way off on some of the bids that have come in and some of the, tile, $50, $5,000, trees, this much, we've been way off.
Yeah.
Let's prioritize what we're going to do at the library from most important to least important. That way the most important things get done at the end of the day. And that way, if the chiller ends up being $50,000 more, or HVAC ends up being, you know what I mean? We
That's-
know that we're taking care of the important things first.
That's exactly why the Library Advisory Board decided let's fix the tiles that are a problem as opposed to
Sure.
fixing all the tiles.
Yep.
Because we knew that we needed to be, if at the end of this, we can afford to fix all the cracked tiles, then we'll fix all the cracked tiles. But the reason the trees is still, we still have to plant new trees. So, we budgeted to remove the trees, but we also budgeted to plant new trees. So in the landscaping budget, we don't know how much those new trees are gonna cost yet, because we haven't done any specs. So, yes, we saved, the estimate for removing the trees was way higher than actually removing the trees was, but we still have to plant new ones too. So there are things to keep in mind. There is still money that's gonna end up being spent in some of those areas, but for the most part, the LED fixtures was a huge one, and that's already over and done with, and it was $6,000 cheaper. The estimate that we had gone with was from Kelch Electric, who had quoted us $1,000 per pendant. And then Voss ended up doing it for us for $3,000 for the whole thing. So, there are a lot of areas where there's give and take, and again, all of this stuff, estimates that you're kind of just an educated guess. And then if you can do it cheaper, great, do it cheaper. So that's exactly what they've been working hard at making sure we do.
Thank you.
Mhm.
Okay.
Thank you.
Would anybody like to make a motion for the painting bids? All painting bid?
I will, Mr. Supervisor. I move that we approve and accept the bid from O-Man Enterprises LLC from Toledo, Ohio, in the amount of $29,908 for the painting of the library interior as presented.
Support.
Okay, motion and supported by Mr. Montroy. Discussion? Seeing none, could you call the roll, please?
Mr. Francis?
Aye.
Mr. Montroy?
Aye.
Mr. Clemens?
Aye.
Mr. Steiner?
Aye.
Hirschberger votes aye. Mr. Peroni?
Aye, and the motion passed 6-0. Thank you, guys.
Thank you.
Appreciate it.
Thanks.
Okay, item 8A, vouchers for payment. Ms. Hirschberger?
I'd like to make a motion that the following vouchers be approved for payment. General Fund, $41,731.10. Fire District, $33,695.51. Police Fund, $1,435.94. Park Fund, $870.41. Transit System Fund, $17,919. Library Fund, $10,410.08. Canterbury Forest, $3,077.68. Downtown Development Authority, $10,798.14. Sewer O&M Fund, $411,840.46. Trust and Agency Fund, $344, for a grand total of $532,122.32.
I'll support the motion.
Okay, motion is supported by Mr. Francis. Discussion? Mr. Francis?
Included in that 411,000 out of the sewer O&M fund is the bi-monthly operating budget amount that we pay in the amount of $408,317. Out of that 411, 408 is for the operating for a 2-month period.
Okay, could you call the roll, please?
Hirschberger votes aye. Mr. Francis?
Aye.
Mr. Steiner?
Aye.
Mr. Clemens?
Aye.
Mr. Montroy?
Aye.
Mr. Peroni?
Aye, the motion passed 6-0. Item 8B, final plat approval for Waterford Subdivision Plat 3. Mr. Greeley? You want to come on up?
I don't think he needs to.
You don't need, you don't want to.
All the items have been submitted. Payments have been submitted also. Everything is in. We approved the lights at the September 17th meeting. So I would like to make a motion that we approve the final plat for Waterford Plat 3.
Second. Support.
Okay, motion is supported by Mr. Steiner. Discussion? Seeing none, could you call the roll, please?
Hirschberger votes aye. Mr. Steiner?
Aye.
Mr. Clemens?
Aye.
Mr. Francis?
Aye.
Mr. Montroy?
Aye.
Mr. Peroni?
Aye, and the motion passed 6-0. Item 8C, resolution needed for body camera grant for Ordinance Department. Ms. Hirschberger?
As I explained in my resolution, or in my memo, this resolution is needed for the grant. I cannot submit it without a resolution from this board saying we are in favor of getting this grant for body cams for the Ordinance Department. This is not a match. They would hopefully pay for the whole amount of the cameras.
Let me just talk a little bit to the body cameras. Our Ordinance Department has, just since I've been here, has run into a few situations to where it would have been nice to have a camera or something to go back on to show proof of what was said, or you know, we have, I mean, Mr. Goldsmith, you can agree, we have a lot of situations where people say one thing and that's not what was said. And I mean, just last week, I think somebody pushed Mr. Redmond. So, I mean, there's some situations where it could definitely come in handy. So, like, I agree with Mr. Tisdale. Either way, I think we need to have them, but if we can get them through a grant, bonus. So,
So I'd like to make a motion that we approve the resolution for body cameras as presented.
Support.
okay, motion supported by Mr. Clemens. Discussion?
What's the approximate cost of the body cameras we're looking at?
A little under 2,500.
Is that each or?
No,
or
for
together?
3.
And just so everybody knows, I think the body cameras that we got last year or the year before for the police department, that was
The
because
new
they're
ones?
getting rid of them and getting new ones.
Mhm.
I don't think those would work out. There's some issues with those, I think, wasn't it, Trudy? That's
Mhm,
why they're
that's
getting
why
rid
they're
of them.
getting rid of 'em.
Yeah, so that was discussed, just so in case anybody wonders. Okay, we have a motion and support. No more discussion. Could you call the roll, please?
Hirschberger votes aye. Mr. Clemens?
Aye.
Mr. Montroy?
Aye.
Mr. Steiner?
Aye.
Mr. Francis?
Aye.
Mr. Peroni?
Aye, the motion passed 6-0. Item 8D, resolution exempting Bedford Township Government from requirement of Public Act 152 from calendar year 2020. Mr. Francis?
This is an item that we have adopted every year since that law was created. The law puts a cap on how much a municipality can pay toward employee health benefits. And we can either adopt that or we can adopt a percentage. We've been using an average of 20%, as you can see, broken down by, I guess, levels of employment, if you will. Elected and management people are at 20%, where that's the amount that the employee pays of the premium. The deputies and firefighters and union members pay 19%, and staff, the rest of the staff that's covered pays 17%. Are there any questions on those amounts or the like? If not, I'd make a motion that we approve this resolution to exempt Bedford for the calendar year 2020 as presented.
Second.
Okay, motion is supported by Mr. Steiner. Discussion? Seeing none, could you call the roll, please?
Mr. Francis?
Aye.
Mr. Steiner?
Aye.
Mr. Montroy?
Aye.
Mr. Clemens?
Aye.
Hirschberger votes aye. Mr. Peroni?
Aye, and the motion passed 6-0. Item 8E, the use of Metro funds for concrete work in Downtown Temperance. This is right here. You all know we did the TAP grant job. Spent a large amount of money, roughly 400-some thousand within it with a grant and plus a match from our right-of-way funds. There was an area at the Csurgo gas station just, and you have pictures here. I'm pretty sure everybody does. Just at their south entrance, the sidewalk and their approach was in really bad shape. While the people were out there, he thought it'd be a great idea to just get the work done. Well, I told him if we wanted to get a partnership with the township, we should probably go before the board first. Well, time constraints kind of held that with him saving money with the people already being on site. So he went ahead and had the work done. As you can see, you know, the approach and the sidewalk is there. Ms. Hirschberger asked that we break it down to where it was just the sidewalk. I believe just the sidewalk portion was just over 3,000.
125, yep.
3,125, and the whole project was
6,000.
6,544. My recommendation is that if the board can agree that we cover the sidewalk portion.
Mr. Supervisor, I was going to weigh in. I was kind of shocked when the work was done to see that this stretch had not been picked up by the grant. Twofold is it had several areas that were what profound trip hazards. The other thing that's noticeable is it's the leading sidewalk which leads to the Veterans Center, which has a higher number of people who are coming in and out and could be prone to that trip hazard. So I was very appreciative that he basically said he was going to get it done, and would only point out that he has been an incredibly good neighborhood partner in the area, and I think the request is absolutely reasonable. I did also talk with Barry Bushman about this, and several thousands of dollars were saved by virtue of the fact that it was done real time and it didn't wait for us. This could have easily ballooned over 10,000 easily.
And what a great partner, like you were saying, in Downtown Temperance. I mean, he's gone as far as installing air pumps for the community down there. He's doing really nice things to his building. I mean, he took an eyesore, the old post office, and made a beautiful building out of it. And now the Veteran Center's in there. So, I mean, he's doing a lot of nice things. So, anybody else have any comments or discussions or questions?
Why was it not part of the TAP grant?
Because the TAP grant focused down Lewis Avenue.
So since it was on Temperance,
It was, I forget the exact number, but it was a couple of feet outside of the point from the middle of the roadway that TAP grant would cover. And so it was technically just literally within inches or a feet or two outside of the boundary.
And down the road, my goal down the road, but I'm glad we got part of it done now, is to eventually do something to where we can do some on-street parking down Temperance, kind of where Village is. There's a lot of right away right there to where you could do some more on-street parking. But, we got to a major issue now, so.
Well, I think when the whole focus of this was to improve walkability, to not do this is counter to what the grant was largely trying to accomplish.
that's what I'm torn on it because of that, because it's like, I don't know, just situationally.
Philosophically, I would say, I think I know where you're coming from, and I would agree that it's not a smart business investment to invest in your property and then bring a bill to town hall and say, hey, pay for it. I think that's a pretty rare moment that we want to get into.
He didn't want
But
it.
I also think, given the total scope on this and the amount of communication he had, it really was a little bit of worst-case scenario being played out. It wasn't opportunism or anything along those lines at all.
Yeah.
If I felt that way at all, I wouldn't even remotely feel comfortable supporting this.
Ms. Hirschberger.
I can also offer that in the past, the township has put sidewalks in Temperance, Samaria, and Lambertville out of Metro funds.
Okay.
So it's not the first time we'd be putting money into a sidewalk
No
in one of these
precedent.
3 areas
What was
out of Metro funds.
how much money did we spend on the TAP grant, like total? Before that, like ball.
440.
So it's like
Yeah.
we're spending $3,000 more and actually having something important done.
Mhm.
They put the lines in on that for the parking yet?
Not yet, no. The weather's not cooperating. I don't know when they're gonna finish some of the things. They don't have benches out there. I think they're waiting on good weather, so I would think they'd do them this week, but.
Okay.
So I look for a motion, or Mr. Francis?
Are there any other areas in that footprint that might have the same situation?
I think the only one that I've observed is if you go west on Temperance, 2 to 3 homes past what is now First Merchants, it gets a little bit more movement, but it's not anywhere near what you were seeing in that Sunoco parking lot.
Mr. Supervisor, also keep in mind that Metro funds can only be used for right-of-way purposes. So we can't use those funds for any other purpose but for right-of-way purposes. And this, just to let the board know, this qualifies.
Correct. And we have $20,000 budgeted in the Metro funds that we have not touched yet.
Mr. Supervisor, I missed your number. Did I hear 3,125? Is that what you had said? All right, I'd make a motion that this board would approve a partial payment of the invoice in our package of $3,125 for the improvement to the right-of-way sidewalk that was done at the property at Temperance and Lewis. Those funds to come out of the Metro Fund account.
I'll support.
Motion supported by Mr. Francis. Discussion? Seeing none, could you call the roll, please?
Mr. Clemens?
Aye.
Mr. Francis?
Aye.
Mr. Steiner?
Aye.
Mr. Montroy?
Aye.
Hirschberger votes aye. Mr. Peroni?
Aye, and the motion passed 6-0. Item number 9, comments from the public. Comments limited to 5 minutes. Come on up.
Yes.
Aaron Adler, 3873 Meadowview Street. I just wanted to give you guys a little asterisk and, a little more information on what we discussed, overview. I don't know if you're all aware of the challenge, you might say, that the library faces each day after school gets out with the middle school and high school. There's 100 kids, sometimes 100+ kids at the library every day. This sounds like it's maybe, last couple years that this change in the clientele, the usage, whatever you want to call it, has become more of a thing. So I personally, just as a library advisory board member, wanted to let you know, my take on things as I'm wrapping my arms around it is that a lot of the stuff that's maybe in year 4 and year 5, as we look at it, and this challenge of all these high school kids coming and all that they're doing every day and what's going on at this library, I think that's one of the issues that we should put, right up there with the chiller, in a sense, that like, hey, we got 100 middle school kids coming here. We don't really have physical or, we don't have a plan for what they're doing. They're just coming after school. What's going on here? So carpet, not carpet, all these things. I think the most important thing is we really wrap our arms around how the library is getting used. And if you see in the future that something from year 5 got sped up to year 3, don't be surprised. And if you disagree, it's all advisory anyway. So, that's all. That's my commentary.
Thank you for your comments. Any more comments? Okay, seeing none, moving on to board members' comments. Mr. Montroy?
I appreciate Mr. Adler coming here and speaking at comment as well. He's definitely been an asset to that board, and obviously has the passion for it and to be on there and doing a good job. And I think you can see that. So I appreciate that. I appreciate, again, Harry Lambers and all the work he's doing with, like I said, he got the HVAC out now. And that was a project, and like the reason why that has been pushed out a little further was because of the time-consuming nature of developing the specs for that job. It was a little easier for him to develop the specs to paint the walls than it is for him to develop the HVAC. So I just appreciate both those guys, and I think that's all I got.
Okay. Mr. Clements?
Couple things. Just wanted to let everybody know with the city of Monroe and their police department that our thoughts and prayers are with them tonight. That kind of incident can reset a department and a community really easily. So I think offering assistance and prayers is vital for where they are, and glad to hear that at least the reports are that no one was seriously injured. Also wanted to say I had the privilege of attending the live fire training this weekend for the fire department, and another agency actually sent over a truck and personnel. And not to tell too much on my television habits, but I'm a little bit obsessed with the live rescue shows. And so you watch Los Angeles, California's fire department, and San Bernardino, and New Jersey. And I was really taken back by the seriousness in which the training was conducted Saturday. There was no goofing off. There was no half speed. If you weren't there and just realized it was a metal building on fire for training, you would have absolutely thought that a real incident was happening. And I think that's a testament to the leadership in our own fire department. So I think kudos there. And then on a happier note, I hope each one of you guys and your families have a good Thanksgiving, and also to all my neighbors. Thank you.
Mr. Steiner?
Without repeating it all over again, I agree. I think we all agree that we're happy to hear that our Police officers are going to be okay. Thoughts and prayers with their families. It's tough at any time, but going into the holidays this time of year, things also getting a little crazy, and people seem to forget about the personal side of things, and we should always think about the personal side when it comes to our safety personnel. Mr. Clements attended the fire training. I didn't attend this week, but I've attended before, and our department, they are terrific. I do have some days off coming up, and I'm going to probably try to arrange with the chief to do a ride-along with the fire department. I was supposed to go last year until I got sick during the time frame, and then things just didn't work out. But I'd like to go with them on some of their actual runs. Hopefully no fires, but those are what they are, and they're going to happen. We don't have a choice on those. The next thing I want to talk about is I did mention the last board meeting about bringing something to this board meeting. It didn't make the agenda, and I think it might be just gone by the wayside, but I will bring it up again about a memo that came out about possibly remoting into these meetings by board members. And I just want to make, I'll just read a few comments that I had about that if we were to even consider it. I said, number one, board members would have to, in my mind, have to attend the entire meeting. They would have to announce also of all the names that would be in the room. They must access with a device that has camera that allows the public and board members to see the remote board member at all times and anyone else that may be in the room. Some of the reasons are to prevent any outside parties or conversations from taking place in secret, to prevent outside parties from influencing or coercing board members' votes, eliminate any perceived or actual backroom deals. I talked also to our township clerk. It would also put some responsibilities and onus on her of publishing these meetings at the location. That could be a logistical problem. If the clerk if it's not in Bedford, let's just say somebody's going to be a couple hours away, the clerk can't very well do that. They could ask the board member to post it, but what if the board member's not in that location in the time required prior to that meeting? The door to wherever they're at would also have to be open to the public. Anyone from the public would be allowed to go in at any time. If somebody wanted to do it from their home, or if they're out of town in a hotel room, I don't know how many people want the general public traipsing through their homes or their hotel rooms or wherever they might be. It's just a big concern to me, and I think a lot of the board members here, I would believe, probably have some of the similar sentiments I do about the whole thing. As I said last time, at the last meeting, I would not be in favor, and these are the majority of the high-level comments that I would make and not be in favor of doing that going forward. Last but not least, this is the season, folks. It's deer running season. Be careful out there. My son found one last week, and it took a nice whopping front end out of his car, so be really careful. Thankfully that he and his kids were safe, so watch for those pesky little whitetails because they are out there. That's all.
Mr. Francis?
Thank you. Rick, you should mention to your son it's probably cheaper to buy bullets than cars when he's going deer hunting. I want to echo the comments made about the fire department. They're the unsung heroes, in my view, in this township. I've been on that advisory board for several years now, and I doubt if there are very many people in the whole township that understand what those men and women go through, the training that they take, the seriousness they take, the commitment that they have. I wouldn't want to get up at 3 in the morning or 4 in the morning to do that, put life and limb at risk for almost nothing in compensation. It's a fee. The citizens of Bedford don't know how good they have it with our fire department. It's in excellent shape, and I'm just full of praise for all of them that are connected with that and the commitment that they have. The other item I wanted to mention is everybody's waiting for this, the real estate tax bills for winter of 2017 are printed in-house, and they'll be mailed out about the 1st of December, and they're due and payable by February 14th, 2020, without any late penalty or interest charges. There'll be a explanation of that and some suggestions that are coming out in the winter newsletter that'll be published in, I don't know, a couple, 3 weeks or so, that you'll have some more on that, but that's all I had for tonight. One big change that will be in that newspaper, or newsletter, and you've already heard some of it, is you're all aware, hopefully, that Monroe Bank and Trust has merged with First Merchant Bank, and the name has been changed. If you drive by one of the branches, you'll see that it changed on, I think it was Veterans Day, when they changed the signage. I think it's a good merger. I think we will work very well with First Merchants, and it's just a change. Nobody likes change, but this is an opportunity for the services offered here to expand. That's all.
Ms. Hirschberger?
I want to let the board know, I did send everyone a memo on the things from the tavern that I was going to be putting out for bid again. Most of that is on. There's a few more things I'm going to add tomorrow, but for the general public, there are more items from the tavern that are out for bid. Other than that, I just want to wish everyone a happy Thanksgiving.
A few things. Also praying for the officers. Hope they have a speedy recovery. The Blizzard Fest is coming up, the 13th and 14th of December. The great community event, free for the community. The bids are out for the Michigan Tavern demo. If you know somebody interested in bidding on that project, please go to the website. The bid specs are on there. The parking lots specs are together for the 3 fire departments and 2 parks. We're looking to get some bids back on that as well. Not necessarily to have the work done this year, just be prepared for spring. Maybe if we get it done in time, at least we could get some stuff crack sealed before winter comes. So the library is a very important building. It's the closest thing we have to a community center right now. A lot of activities, a lot of events. It's just more than going to a place and getting books. And I appreciate everything you guys are doing. If you guys ever need help, you're bored or you're struggling with specs or something, just give us a call. It's something we deal with on a regular basis. We're more than willing to lend a hand or offer some information or whatever we can do. So I'd like to wish everybody a happy Thanksgiving. And the firemen and sheriff's department and medical personnel that have to work on this day, thank you. I do want to mention we do have our first millage meeting this Friday at 8 o'clock here at the township. That's something we've been talking about for a little while now. I think it's very important. That's one of 2 meetings that we'll be having. Many board positions are open right now that we'll be filling by the end of the year. We have BZA, planning, a few different openings. So if you're interested in serving, we need some good people to sign up, so please look for that. We do have dead deer pickup now. This board approved a certain amount of money to pick up dead deer. We've been hammered with calls. There had to have been 10 dead deer this week in the township, so thankfully we do have that because people don't have to deal with rotting deers in their front yards. So those are getting picked up. Just keep in mind the person that's doing it does have a day job, and it's something they do in the evenings. He actually just texted me asking if I remember an address of where one was. So, our South County Water Board meeting is this Thursday, where we'll be discussing a lot at that meeting. And I know a lot of the residents are looking at some of the fees and information that's out there right now from Facebook. They don't know where a lot of those numbers came from, but we'll be putting out a press release at some point in the next week from the Drain Commissioner's office, because they oversee that contract, keep in mind. And South County Water runs the water. The actual government center doesn't have anything to do with the contract or the water. So look for that. And if you do see a dead deer, call the supervisor's office at 734-224-7322. Other than that, anybody have any further questions or comments? Mr. Francis?
I was going to bring this up and I forgot. My daughter spent her undergrad college career at Northwestern, and one of the courses that she took was a philosophy course. And the professor there was a very learned man, very smart, very well recognized, known all over the world, harping at there is no God, there is no God. And then he closed it with wishing everyone a happy Thanksgiving. And someone yelled out, "Who do we thank?"
Okay, we stand adjourned.